Rejected by my fiancé's parents. You're not good enough. They made her call off the wedding. So I did one thing that changed their whole life. I am a man, 28 years old. My life was very good until not long ago. My dad, Robert Mitchell, has a company called Mitchell Construction and Development. These are not real names. His company is one of the biggest building companies in our city. They do big jobs like stores, big buildings, and work for the government. The company makes about $40 million each year. Do not think this is about a rich kid. My dad made me work for what I have. I started working at building sites when I was 16. I did hard work, not an easy desk job. I spent my summers moving heavy things, learning how to build things, and working with men who had built things for many years. After school, I learned about running a business because my dad said I needed to know all parts of the work. I worked in every part of the company, guessing costs, running jobs, talking to clients, and more. I worked hard for 5 years before my dad made me the boss of work. I made my $95,000 pay and extra money. Everyone at work knows I got my job because I worked hard, not because of my family name. My dad taught me that you must earn respect, not just get it from family. He said our family did well because we treated people right and did good work. He would tell me, your good name is the only thing money can't buy. You can lose all your money and make it back, but if people don't trust you, you're done. I always remembered what he said. For 4 years, the most important person in my life was Amanda Clark, the woman I was going to marry. Now, when I think of her name, I get mad. I thought Amanda was perfect. She was pretty, smart, and made me laugh every day. She sold things for a company of medium size, made good money, and liked to spend time with me no matter what we did. We met at a party to raise money for people in need. My dad's company paid for the party. She came with her friends. I came because my dad said our family had to go to these parties to look good in town. She came to me where drinks were served and said, "You look like you want to be somewhere else." I laughed and said, "Yes, I want to be anywhere but here." We talked for the whole night. What I liked about Amanda was that she did not seem to care about money. When I told her about my family's work, she just asked if I liked my job. When I drove my simple truck to pick her up, she said she liked men who drove useful cars. When we ate out, she wanted to pay half the bill. For 4 years, I thought I found someone who loved me for who I am, not for my family's money. I was so wrong. Amanda's family was not like her. Her dad, David Clark, had a company called Clark Mechanical Systems. His company was medium-sized and fixed air systems and water pipes in buildings. They did good work and people knew them, but they were not as big as the top companies in our city. Her mom, Patricia, was a woman who thought she was important because of her husband's job and what her daughter might do. She never worked a day in her life, but she always told other people what jobs they should have. She dressed like she was going to a fancy club. She always talked about what people should do and how they should act. From the first day I met them, they acted strange to me. They were not mean, but they always seemed to be checking if I was good enough. They asked about my future plans and what I wanted to do with my life. They said things about how good Amanda was and how she needed a man who could give her a good life. I thought they were just being good parents. Now I know they were checking if I was good enough for their daughter, even though I did not know that was what they were doing. About 1 year ago, Amanda's family started acting odd. Her dad would say things about how hard it was to run a business and how big companies were making it hard for small ones. Her mom would talk about how they were having money problems for a short time and how they were planning to do better later. Amanda started to act different too. She asked more questions about my dad's company, about new jobs they would do, and about how they chose who to work with. She talked more about her dad's work, about how good his workers were, and how you could trust his company. I thought she was just proud of her family. Now I know she was trying to get information. 6 months ago, her dad's company got into big trouble. A big job went very wrong. The machines they used were bad, and the job cost much more money than they thought. They had to pay for about $300,000 in damages. Their insurance company said they would not pay. The people who sold them parts said they had to pay with cash right away. David's company was going to run out of money and close. Amanda was very upset. She cried and told me her family might lose everything. She said her dad had worked for 30 years to build his company, and it could all go away because of one bad job. I felt very bad for her. This was the woman I loved, and her family was in big trouble. So I did what any good man who was going to marry someone would do. I said I would help. I told her I could talk to my dad. I said we had a new store project starting soon. It would need a lot of air system work. Maybe we could let her dad's company try to get the job. The way Amanda's eyes got bright should have told me something was wrong. She did not look happy. She looked like she was planning something. She asked, "You will do that? Really?" I said, "Of course. We will be family soon, right?" That weekend, I talked to my dad and told him what was happening. I said David's company was in trouble, but they did good work. The new Meridian shopping complex project would need a lot of air and water systems. Maybe we could help them. My dad listened and then asked questions I should have asked. He said, "Son, how is their money situation really? If they don't have much money, taking on a big job could make things worse, not better." I said, "I think they just need one good job to get better, Dad." My dad looked at me for a long time and said, "This is important to you." I said, "Yes, it is." He said, "Okay, have David give us a plan for the job. If the price is right and they can do the work, we will think about it." 2 weeks later, David gave us his plan. He asked for $1.2 million to do all the air, water, and fire safety systems for the Meridian stores. The price was good, the time he said he would need was okay, and his workers knew how to do the job. But my dad's team that checks companies found some bad things. David's company was in worse shape than I knew. They owed money to the people who sold them parts, had debts, and could not get insurance for more work. Taking on a job this big was very risky for them. My dad told me this job could either save their company or end it. If they can't do the work or stop in the middle, it will cost us time and money to fix. But if they do the job well, they will be back in business, and we will have a good company to work with in the future. My dad made his choice because he trusted me and because he thought it was the right thing to do. He made a deal where we would pay them as they finished parts of the job and made sure they did good work. But he gave David the job. When I told Amanda, she cried because she was happy. David shook my hand so hard it hurt. Patricia gave me a hug, which was the first time she was ever really nice to me. David said, "You saved us. I will never forget this." For the first time since I met them, Amanda's family treated me like I was part of their family. David started calling me son. Patricia stopped saying mean things about my future plans. They seemed really thankful and nice. I thought I had finally shown them I was good enough for their daughter. I did not know that I had just made a big mistake. The Meridian job was going well. David's workers were on time, the work was good, and the money we paid them as they finished parts of the job was helping them fix their money problems. For 6 months, everything was great. Amanda and I were making plans for our wedding. Her family was very nice to me, and my dad was happy with how well the work with David's company was going. Then we had a dinner that changed everything. It was a Thursday night in late September. Amanda and I were at her parents' house for their weekly family dinner. They started doing this after David's company started doing better. We were talking about our wedding plans, especially how much money to spend. Amanda and I had agreed on a good amount, maybe $50,000 for about 150 people. It would be nice, but not too fancy. Her parents had wanted a bigger, more fancy wedding, but we said we would only spend what we could pay for. That's when Patricia said something that shocked me. She said, "Robert, we have been thinking. A man like you, with your family's place in town, well, $50,000 seems too small, don't you think?" I looked up from my food, confused. I asked, "What do you mean?" She said, "You are a Mitchell. Your dad's company is one of the best in this area. People will watch and judge you. The wedding should show how important your family is." David nodded and said, "What Patricia means is that this is a chance to show people what the Mitchell family is like." I said, "The Mitchell family? This is Amanda and my wedding. We are paying for it with our own money." Then Patricia laughed. It was not a nice laugh. It was a laugh that made me feel small and bad. She said, "Oh, Robert, don't think small. You can't want Amanda to have a cheap wedding when she is marrying into one of the most important families in the city." I was getting mad. I said, "Patricia, we build things for a living. We are not kings or queens." David moved closer to me, and I saw something cold in his eyes that I had never seen before. He said, "Robert, son, you need to understand something. Amanda deserves the best. She grew up expecting certain things. A $50,000 wedding tells people the wrong thing about the kind of life you can give her." I looked at Amanda, thinking she would agree with me and tell her parents we had already made our decision. But she would not look at me. She was playing with her cloth napkin. I said, "Amanda, tell them what we decided." Then she looked at me, and what I saw on her face scared me. It was not love or support. It was like she was planning something. She said, "Maybe they are right, Robert. I mean, we want to start our marriage in a good way. We want to make people think well of us." I asked, "Make a good impression on who?" Patricia said, "On your dad's clients, the people he works with, everyone important in town. Robert, you must know that how people see you is very important in business." I was getting angry now. I said, "How people see us? You want me to spend more than $100,000 on one night to make people think we are important?" David said in a voice that made me feel small, "It's not about one night. It's about showing people where you stand, showing them that you want to be successful." Then I understood what was happening. They were not really talking about the wedding. They were talking about me and what I could give them. I said slowly, "Let me make sure I understand. You think I should spend 2 times more money than Amanda and I agreed to because of what other people might think?" Patricia stopped being nice for a moment. She said, "Robert, Amanda has been patient with you. She has accepted that you like simple things, but she deserves better than simple. She deserves the best. She deserves the kind of life that someone as smart and well-raised as her should have." Patricia kept talking, the kind of life she could have with someone who knows how valuable she is. The room became very quiet. David was nodding at what his wife said. Amanda was still looking at her plate. Then Patricia said the thing that hurt the most. She said, "You are a good boy, Robert. You have helped our family a lot. But let's be honest, you are not as good as Amanda, are you? She needs someone who is as smart and important as she is. She needs someone who will not stop her from being all she can be." I felt like someone had hit me in the stomach. I said, "Stop her from being all she can be?" David said, "What Patricia means is that Amanda has other choices, son. She is pretty, smart, and comes from a good family. She could marry anyone she wants, a doctor, a lawyer, someone who has their own business, instead of just working for his daddy." He said working for his daddy. That's what they really thought. I looked at Amanda one more time, hoping she would say something to help me or to talk about us. Instead, she looked up and said quietly but firmly, "They're right, Robert. I have been thinking about this for a while. I don't think we want the same things anymore. I think we should not get married." Just like that. We were together for 4 years, and she ended it because her parents said I was not good enough for their special daughter. I did not yell, fight, or beg. I just sat there for a moment, thinking about how the woman I was going to marry had just thrown me away like something broken. Then I did something that surprised everyone, including me. I smiled. I said, "I understand," and I took the ring off Amanda's finger and put it on the table. I said, "Thank you for telling me how you really feel." I stood up, looked at each of them, and said, "You know what? You are right. Amanda does deserve someone who is as smart and important as she is. I hope she finds him." Then I left, got in my truck, and drove home. But I was not sad or mad. I was something more dangerous. I was very calm. I sat in my car at my house for 20 minutes with the engine off, just thinking. I was not thinking about Amanda. That was over. I was thinking about the job, the $1.2 million help my family gave to David's company when they were in big trouble. The job that saved their company, gave them back their good life, and apparently made them think they were too good for the family that helped them. I took out my phone and called my dad. He said, "Robert, is everything okay? It's late." I said, "Dad, I need to talk to you about the contract with Clark's company." He was quiet for a moment and asked, "What about it?" I said, "Amanda and I just broke up. Her family told me very clearly that I am not good enough for their daughter. They think I am just a guy who works for his dad and could never give Amanda the kind of life she deserves." He was quiet again for longer. When my dad spoke again, his voice was very cold. He said, "Is that so?" I said, "Yes. They think Amanda has better choices, smarter choices, someone who will not stop her from being all she can be." My dad asked, "And how do you feel about that, son?" "I think maybe we should think about working with them. If I am not good enough to marry into their family, maybe my family's company is not good enough to work with them either." My dad was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Robert, that contract has a part that says we can end it. We can stop working with them if we tell them 30 days before and pay a fee of 10% of the contract value." I remembered the fee would be about $120,000. My dad said, "David has already been paid for the work he has done, so we would not be cheating him, but ending the contract would put his company in a very bad spot." I asked, "How bad?" My dad said, "Well, they hired more workers for this job, rented new machines, and borrowed money based on this contract. If we end it, they would have spent too much money and have no big jobs to pay for it." I thought about Patricia's mean laugh, about David calling me son while thinking I was not good enough for his daughter, about Amanda sitting there agreeing with her parents while they ruined 4 years of my life. I asked, "Dad, what would happen to Clark's company if we ended the contract?" He said, "Honestly, they would probably go out of business in 6 months. The fee we would pay would not be enough to cover their new costs, and our company would lose the fee money and have to find a new company to do the work." I thought about Patricia's mean laugh, about David calling me son while thinking I was not good enough for his daughter, about Amanda sitting there agreeing with her parents while they ruined 4 years of my life. I asked, "Dad, what would happen to Clark's company if we ended the contract?" He said, "Honestly, they would probably go out of business in 6 months. The fee we would pay would not be enough to cover their new costs, and our company would lose the fee money and have to find a new company to do the work." I thought about Patricia's mean laugh, about David calling me son while thinking I was not good enough for his daughter, about Amanda sitting there agreeing with her parents while they ruined 4 years of my life. I asked, "Dad, what would happen to Clark's company if we ended the contract?" He said, "Honestly, they would probably go out of business in 6 months. The fee we would pay would not be enough to cover their new costs, and our company would lose the fee money and have to find a new company to do the work. But we would be okay. We might even save money later if we find someone who charges less." I made my choice. I said, "Dad, I want you to end the contract." He asked, "Are you sure, son? A lot of people's jobs depend on this." I said, "I am sure. They made it very clear tonight how they feel. If I am not good enough for their family, then our company's money is not good enough for their business." My dad said, "Okay, Robert, I will have our lawyers write the paper to end the contract first thing in the morning. They will get it by the end of the day tomorrow." I said, "Thanks, Dad." My dad said, "Son, I think you are making the right choice. Being loyal to family works both ways. If they can't see how good you are, they don't deserve our help." I hung up the phone and went inside my house. I slept very well for the first time in months. The next morning, I woke up to 17 calls I missed and 23 text messages. The fun was just starting. The calls began around 10 in the morning, right after they got the paper saying we were ending the contract. David called first, confused and scared, then Patricia, then Amanda. They all asked if there was a mistake or if we did not understand something. I let them all leave messages. I had work to do. You see, ending the contract was just the first thing I did. I had thought all night about how to really hurt them, and I remembered something important. 3 months ago, Amanda asked me to help her friend Sarah get a job at my dad's company. Sarah worked with money and bills, and we needed someone to help with the money for our projects. Sarah was smart, paid attention to small things, and was happy for the job. We had become friends over the months, not in a romantic way, just as people who work together. But Sarah could see all of my family's company's money records, including information about the companies we worked with. So I asked Sarah to do something for me. I wanted to see all of Clark's company's payment records, work history, and how well they did their jobs. I told her it was for a normal check of how well we worked together. But really, I was looking for things I could use against them. What Sarah found was very good for me. Clark's company was not just having money problems. They had been doing bad work to keep their prices low. They used cheap materials, did not check if their work was good, and did jobs too fast to save money on workers. These things would not cause problems right away, but would cause problems later. More importantly, David had been lying on his bills. Not by a lot, just enough that people might not notice. He added a few more hours here and there and said materials cost more than they did. During the project, he probably took an extra $50,000 from my family's company. But the biggest surprise came when Sarah looked more at when Clark's company did their recent jobs. That's when we found something that made me very angry. David's company did not get into money trouble because of one bad job. They got into trouble because David had been charging clients too much money for years, and finally a big client found out and wanted to check all his bills. The client was Hutchinson Development, one of my family's company's biggest competitors. Then I understood what was happening. David's money problems were not bad luck. They happened because he had been lying on bills for years and finally got caught. When Hutchinson Development found out David had cheated them, they not only sued him for money, but also told other people in the business what David had done. That's why no other big companies would work with David. It was not because the business was hard. It was because people knew he cheated his clients. But here is the really bad part. Sarah found emails between David and Amanda from more than a year ago. They were talking about my family's company as a chance to get work and planning how to use our relationship to get jobs. Amanda did not fall in love with me and then her family got into trouble. Amanda had been building our relationship just to help her father's failing company. I had been tricked from the very first day. The emails were very bad. Amanda asked about my dad's upcoming jobs, about how he made decisions, about which workers could choose who to work with. David told her what information to get and how to talk about his company in normal talks. But the worst email was from just 2 weeks ago. Amanda wrote to her father, "Robert does whatever I want. After we get married and I have real power in the Mitchell family, we can make Clark's company the only company they use for mechanical work. We can get deals for many years, high prices, everything. This time I spent building the relationship will help us for many years." Investment in the relationship. That's all I was to her. But it gets worse. Sarah found one more thing that made me understand everything. Clark's company got a lot of money 3 months ago, at about the same time Amanda started talking about when to get married and wanted to set a wedding date. The money came from Patricia's brother, Marcus Webb, and Marcus Webb was a boss at Webb Richardson and Associates, the law company that helped Hutchinson Development sue Clark's company. I looked at the papers for a long time, understanding the last parts of what happened. David had been stealing from clients for years. When Hutchinson Development found out, they sued him and told other people what he did, so no big companies would work with him. David was going to lose his company and might even go to jail. That's when Patricia's family made a plan. Use Amanda to catch a Mitchell, get a big job to save the company, then use the marriage to make Clark's company the company my family's company would always use. Amanda's relationship with me was not love. It was a plan to help their business that took many years. Now that they had the job and thought they were safe, they were ending things with me because I was not useful anymore. They probably thought I would be too sad to cause trouble, and that they could pay the fee for ending the contract while looking for their next person to trick. They had no idea who they were dealing with. With the information Sarah found, I decided it was time to have some fun. But first, I needed to let Amanda know how much trouble she was in. I called her around 2 in the afternoon, right after I finished putting together all the evidence. She said, "Robert, thank God you called. We need to talk about this contract problem. There has been some mistake." I said, "No mistake, Amanda. I ended the contract because your family told me I am not good enough for you. It seems very clear to me." Amanda said, "Robert, please, my parents were just worried about the wedding money." They didn't mean, "Actually, Amanda, I think they meant exactly what they said, just like you meant what you said when you ended our engagement." She said, "We can fix this or we can get back together and work things out." I said, "It's interesting that you offer this now, almost like it has something to do with us ending the contract." She was quiet. I said, "Amanda, I have been doing some research today. Very interesting things to read." She asked, "What kind of research?" I said, "Well, to start, I found out about your father's little problem with lying on bills to Hutchinson Development, the lawsuit, and why no other big companies will work with Clark's company." She was quiet again. I said, "I also found some very interesting emails between you and your father, emails about using our relationship and making your family's company the only company we work with after we got married." I could hear her breathing getting fast. She said, "Robert, I can explain." I asked, "Can you explain the money from Uncle Marcus? The money that came at about the same time you started wanting to set a wedding date?" She asked, how do you know about that?" I said, "My family's company can see the money records of all the companies we work with. We check on them, you know. And when I started looking, I found some very interesting things." Amanda said, "Robert, please, you don't understand everything." I said, "I understand perfectly. Your father has been stealing from clients for years. When he finally got caught, your family made a plan to use me to save your money problems. 4 years of my life, Amanda. 4 years of thinking you loved me, when really I was just someone your family was tricking for a long time." She started crying, but I was not finished. I said, "But here's the really good part, Amanda. Ending our contract will not just put your father's company out of business, it will make people check all of Clark's company's bills. Because when a big company suddenly stops working with another company, other clients start asking questions." She asked, "What do you mean?" I said, "I mean, I have already made some calls. I told some people in the business about your father's interesting way of billing people. News travels fast in our business." Amanda said, "Robert, you can't do this. My family will lose everything." I said, "Your family tried to steal everything from my family. The only difference is we are better at it than you are." I hung up the phone and right away called my insurance person. If Clark's company was about to fall apart, I wanted to make sure my family's company was safe from any legal problems. The next few days were great to watch. People in the business started hearing about Clark's company's problems. Other clients started checking their bills, finding mistakes, and asking for explanations. The state group that gives licenses to companies started an investigation. The tax people started asking about money they did not report. The company that insured David's work took away his license. By the end of the week, Clark's company was finished. Not just the job with us, the whole company was done. But I was not happy yet because Patricia and Amanda still thought they could talk their way out of this. They kept calling and leaving messages about fixing things and finding a way to help everyone. It was time to show them what I thought of their ideas. The begging really started about 2 weeks after we ended the contract. First, David came to my office looking like he had gotten 10 years older. The people who keep our building safe had to make him leave when he started yelling in our front room. Then Patricia called, trying to use family feelings. She talked about how much they had come to love me, how I was like a son to them, and how we could surely fix this mistake. But the call that made me really happy was from Amanda herself, 3 weeks after everything happened. Amanda said, "Robert, I need to see you. Please, just give me 5 minutes to explain." Even though I thought it was a bad idea, I said I would meet her for coffee. I wanted to see what she would try to do. She looked awful. Her hair was not clean, her clothes were messy, and she had dark circles under her eyes. This was not the perfect woman who left me because she thought I was not good enough. Amanda said, "Robert, I'm sorry. I am so sorry. I never wanted things to get this bad." I asked, "Which things, Amanda? The 4-year trick or getting caught?" She said, "It wasn't a trick. I really did love you. I still do." I said, "You loved what I could give you. That's different." She started crying again. She said, "My family is destroyed, Robert. My father might go to jail. My mother is having a mental breakdown. We are going to lose our house." I said, "That's too bad." She asked, "How can you be so mean? This is my family." I said, "Amanda, 3 weeks ago, your family told me I was not good enough to be part of your family. You agreed with them, so why would I care what happens to them now?" She said, "Because deep down, you are still the good man I fell in love with?" I almost laughed. I said, "The good man you were planning to use as your family's own money machine for the next 30 years? She said, that wasn't the plan." I said, "It was exactly the plan. I have seen the emails, Amanda. I know about the uncle's money, the Hutchinson lawsuit, all of it." She just looked at me, finally understanding that I knew everything. She asked, "What do you want, Robert? What will it take to make this stop?" I said, "Nothing. Nothing, Amanda. You can't give me what I want, because what I want is 4 years of my life back. I want to never have met your family. I want to never have believed your fake act." She said, "Robert, please, I will do anything. We can get back together. I will sign a paper that says I get no money if we divorce. I will give up any right to your family's money. Just help us." And that's when I said the thing I had been practicing for weeks. I said, "Amanda, you told me I would never be good enough for you. Well, you were right. I am not good enough to be the fool who saves your criminal family. I am not good enough to pretend your love was real. And I am definitely not good enough to waste any more of my life on people who see me as just a way to get money." I stood up to leave, but stopped and turned back to her. I said my last words with a sharp tone. I said calmly, "By the way, I heard that Hutchinson Development is hiring new workers. Maybe your father should ask for a job there. I am sure they would be very happy to hire someone with his special background and lots of experience in this work." That meeting was 6 months ago, and it was a big change in what happened. After that, David was sent to jail for 18 months. A court found him guilty of lying to get money and not paying his taxes because of the bad way he ran his business. Patricia, dealing with the fact that they had no money, had to sell their family home and move to a small rented apartment. It was very different from the fancy life she had before. Now, she works at a local store where she talks to the same kind of normal people she used to think she was better than. As for Amanda, she had to go live with her mother after she lost her job in marketing, a job she was proud of. It seems that having a father who is a convicted criminal makes it hard to find a good job. The last I heard about her was that she got a job at a busy call center, making very little money, at about $12 per hour. This was very different from what she had wanted for her life. As for me, I am doing very well. My dad made me a senior boss after seeing how I handled the Clark situation. He said it showed I was good at business and loyal to my family. My pay is now $120,000 plus extra money. I have been dating someone new for a few months. Her name is Jessica, and she is an animal doctor I met through friends. She is smart, funny, and most importantly, she makes her own money and does not care about my money. When I told her the whole story about Amanda's family, she just shook her head and said, "It sounds like you avoided a big problem." The best part was last month. Amanda called one more time, not on my personal phone. She called my office and said it was about finishing some business. My secretary put her through to me. Amanda said, "Robert, I need help. I cannot pay my rent this month, and I don't know who else to ask." I asked, "Amanda, why are you calling me?" She said, because you are the only person I know who might help. I am desperate, Robert. I am about to be thrown out of my home." I asked, "Have you tried calling one of those smart, successful men your mother thought you deserved?" I said, "Be quiet, Amanda. 3 weeks before you left me, you told your parents I would never be successful. That you needed someone who was as important as you. Well, I am still the same guy who will never be successful. Why would you think I have extra money for someone as high class as you?" Amanda said, "Robert, please." I said, "You know what, Amanda? I have an idea. Why don't you call your Uncle Marcus? I am sure a successful lawyer like him would be happy to help his favorite niece. Oh, wait, I forgot. He probably doesn't answer your calls now that your father, being a criminal, has made your family name bad." Amanda said, "Robert, I am begging you." I said, "And I am saying no. You made your choice, Amanda. You chose to see me as someone to trick instead of a partner. You chose your family's wanting money over our relationship. You chose to throw away 4 years for the promise of something better." She said, "I made a mistake." I said, "Yes, you did. You thought I was stupid enough to help you twice." I hung up and told my secretary not to let her call again. That night, I took Jessica to dinner at the best restaurant in town. We talked about her work, helping animals, my latest building projects, and our plans for the weekend. We had a real talk between two people who like each other. While we were eating, I saw someone I knew through the window. It was Amanda, walking on the street, wearing a uniform from a cleaning company. She looked tired, beaten, and older than she is. For a moment, I felt something like pity. Then I remembered Patricia's mean laugh, David's talking down to me, and Amanda's cold planning when she threw away 4 years of love for a better business chance. The pity went away. Jessica saw me looking out the window. She asked, "Someone you know?" I said, "I used to know her. Nobody important." And that was true. Amanda and her family had been important to me once, when I thought they were real people, and not just people who take advantage of others but wear nice clothes. But they showed me exactly what they were, and I acted in the right way. They wanted someone who was good enough for them. I hope they found him. Good luck paying for someone like that when you make $12 per hour. That is my story. 4 years of my life wasted on people who saw me as just a way to get money. But at least I found out who they really were before I married into that family of trickers. I guess it was an expensive lesson about how people can be.